Welcome to Why I Left, a podcast that explores the Great Resignation. I'm your host, Brian Aquart. Join me as I chronicle real stories from real people about the reasons they decided to leave their jobs during the pandemic and what has happened since. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of Why I Left. In today's episode, I chat with Stacy Reed. Stacy is a former senior marketer for Zappos who wasn't being seen in her last organization despite hitting her targets. She decided it was time to bet on herself and now consults with brands on their social advertising strategies and hosts her own podcast. Let's go check out her story. All right, welcome back. So our guest today is Stacy Reed. Stacy is the CEO of Stacy Zeal & Co., which is a company helping online product brands scale to 7 figures plus through social media ads. And she's also the host of the Roadmap to 1 Million podcast. Now, when she realized she wasn't being valued, she knew it was time for something different. And I learned of her after she was featured in Rebecca Knight's Business Insider article about McKinsey & Company's and Lean In's 2022 Women in the Workplace report, both of which I'll provide links to in our show notes. So hi, Stacy. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Brian?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for joining me. And look, we'll definitely get to Roadmap to 1 million. But just I got to give you all a heads up. Stacy's dropping gems on Roadmap to 1 million. So I can't wait for her to tell you a little bit more about that. And so now before we kind of get into that, and really prior to your pivot during the pandemic, tell us a little bit about your upbringing and where you call home.
Yeah, so I am born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, and it is definitely a place that is so close to my heart. I love the city. I was raised here, went to school here. I went to college here as well. And then I also have a second home, a place that I call home is Las Vegas. I moved to Las Vegas and I lived there for about 6 years. And that was such a transformational experience in my life, or transformational time in my life. I really came into who I was and who I am. My career really took off there. And so I definitely call that as a second place home.
No, that's great. And now what are some of the things that you've been passionate about professionally?
So many things. I am very multi-passionate. Marketing is something I've always been passionate about. I've always been very good at marketing, and I've put a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears into getting really, really good at marketing. But also yoga. I'm a yogi. I love yoga. I used to teach yoga. I'm also a cannabis advocate, cannabis lover. The plant really changed my life because I have insomnia, and it helped me to overcome that. And so I had a podcast about that as well. And so had a blog about cannabis advocacy. So I'm very much a person who really loves to explore new things. I love to explore my passions. And when I get an idea or something, it kind of I can't not think about it. I can't not do anything about it because I just love to live life in a passionate way. And I would never want to regret not trying something that I really wanted to do. So betting on myself and pursuing my passions is something that I've always done. And I love that about myself.
That's great to hear. And now prior to launching, your own company, tell us a little bit about your work journey and what's worked well in some of the environments that you find yourself a part of.
Yeah. So I've been in marketing for 11 years. And so I started when digital marketing was a specialization. And nowadays people are like social media experts, Facebook ad experts, all those things. But like when I started in marketing, digital marketing was a specialization. So you had to learn how to do websites, SEO, email, social media, all the things. And so throughout my career, digital marketing has been something that I've done full time. I've worked for been in situations where I've been the only marketing person, only Black person, in the building. Fast forward to also working for $100 million companies on, small teams. And then also working for Zappos, a marketing team of 30 and an 8-9 figure company, working right directly with Amazon and under Amazon. It's been a journey for sure. It's been a journey. It's been a wild ride, but it's something that really, I think, aligns just so much with my strengths because I love to learn. I love to learn new things. I'm very much someone who gets very involved and very passionate with something that's going on, or I really want to dig into something. I learn things quickly. I can also see the many different pieces, the many moving pieces of marketing, and really figure out like, how do we ground this into a sustainable, scalable strategy? And I definitely think, my career, my mentors, people who I've worked with over the years, and really being at Zappos for 4 years leading paid social, I really, really got to see like, what does it look like when you really spend money to actually build a brand? Like how all the money that's flowing, all of the resources that are flowing to come together for a common goal and to make something really, really large is amazing. And it was something definitely to be studied.
And, you mentioned a phrase there that, look, I'm still learning more and more about, right? You talked about paid social. For us novices in this game, what is paid social?
Yeah, that's a great question. Paid social is really advertising on social platforms. And so if you think about like on Facebook, you see ads. I was directly responsible for building and strategizing and scaling ads at Zappos for 4 years. And so we did Facebook ads, Instagram ads. I've done TikTok ads. I've done Pinterest ads. And so when you think about social media, you have either an organic route that you can go or a paid route, but it works best when you do them together. And so we had people who were responsible for updating the Instagram page and, doing the organic stuff. And then we also had a team, which I was on, myself and one other person was responsible for making sure that we were actually selling on these platforms. And so that's really kind of the difference. Like organic is more so focused on engagement and brand awareness and building community. And those things are super, super important for your marketing. But then also paid advertising comes into the play. Paid social advertising specifically comes into play when you're really trying to get your message and your brand and your product in front of exponentially more people, in front of, billions or millions of people is the opportunity that you have when you lean into social advertising. So it's about definitely, finding the balance between both, but it's also about paying to play. It's really deciding that as a business owner that I'm going to invest money in getting my product or my services in front of tons more people that could need it, that could use it.
Man, I think that, it's a great point. And as I've listened to, a couple of your episodes, it's something that, as I continue to grow the show's brand, I got to really start taking a look at, right? I need the funds for that, of course, but definitely going to start taking more of a look into that. And so now would love to kind of transition into and really take you back to March of 2020, right? We're introduced to this thing called COVID. We definitely weren't calling it the pandemic then, but talk to us a little bit about how the pandemic affected you.
Yeah, such a great question. Definitely. It's interesting. So like right before the pandemic, right before everything started to shut down, I was working in Las Vegas in headquarters at Zappos. And I had put in a request to move home because I put in a request to work remotely because I wanted to move home. Because I had a nephew, my nephew was just born, and I was like, I got to be here. I got to be Auntie Stacy. And so I was planning on moving back home, but I wanted my job. And so I had put in a request to be remote. And it wasn't something that was foreign at Zappos. We have remote teams at the time. So it's like, it was interesting because remote work in that environment was not, I wouldn't say a seamless transition, but it was a very easy transition for me as initially, kind of starting, because by the time I started, when I moved back home and started being remote, our office had just shut down. So everybody was remote. So literally my first day being remote just so happened to be the first day that the office was shut down and everybody was working remotely. And so we all were collectively making sure that everything still had to get done, even though we were working remotely. And so I would definitely say career-wise, it was a lot more work for me, especially because at that time I was also balancing a side hustle. I've been someone who's always had a side hustle. So my marketing business at the time and my cannabis blog at the time were both my side hustles. I was working full time. And so I structured my day in a way that I had time for side hustle. I had time for a morning routine. And then I would go directly into working at Zappos, which was on West Coast time. So fortunately for me, I could work in the afternoon to the evenings. And so that worked great for a while. Like I was doing my day was very structured. Things were getting done. Clients were being handled. Work was being handled. But then you start to really look at your life. I think that's what happened a lot to a lot of people in COVID. And it happened to me. And I started to think about how do I want to spend my time? How do I want my life to look? And I started to realize that my life looked like work all day. my life looked like I was too tired to go out with my friends for happy hour, or I couldn't go to happy hour because I didn't stop working until 8 p.m. because I was working on West Coast time. It looked like me just feeling like my day was so structured and there was no space for fluidity and rigidity and freedom, which is a value of mine. And so I really started to think about, like, what do I want my life to look like? Where do I want to go next? I was thinking about what's next after Zappos, because when I went into Zappos originally, I said I wanted to work in tech and I wanted to work for a big brand. Got into Zappos, I worked with hundreds of big brands. And so what was next? And so what was next for me was betting on myself. And during that time of me deciding, like, what's next, I'm also like, well, I'm in this job. Let me put in for a raise request, because I hired a business coach, and she was like, even if you're working full time, you need to be asking for more money. And so I said, you know what, you're right. I said, you know what, you're right, because my workload has doubled. One of my mentor and boss at the time, she had left, and so my workload had doubled. And so I was like, I'm going to put in for a raise request. And so I put in for a raise request, and it took about 9 months, literally, to put in a raise request to get a raise request approved. And there was all, kinds of back and forth, red tape, all kinds of things. And then you have, George Floyd's murder that happens in that time. And so much was happening in that 2 years that I really took a look at my life and said, what do I want my life to look like? I wanted my life to look like unlimited income potential, and not you telling me that there's a ceiling on the amount of money that I can make, even though there is no ceiling on the amount of work that is being put into the organization. I wanted the freedom to take a nap in the middle of the day, to not have such a structured life where I could actually, just have downtime. I wanted to be able to work with clients that I really believed in their brands, and I really, really wanted them to see them to succeed. And they were also very invested in me and wanting to see me succeed. And I want to travel the world. And so that is why I decided, throughout that whole process was deciding what's next. And what's next was me. What's next is me living my life to the fullest and being able to make all my dreams come true of seeing the whole world and just having such a transformational experience.
No, that's really great to hear. And now, one of the things, so you were in this online retail space, and it was booming then. It's definitely booming now. And like during the pandemic, right? Obviously things shut down and whatnot. So how did you change the way you worked during the shutdowns?
Yeah. So it was a lot of changing the way we work. Yeah. So it definitely was a lot of really kind of over communicating, I think, is one of the things that was really important, because the great thing about Zappos when I was at headquarters, and the great thing and not so great thing, was that we had open office floor. So we were, open floor. All our desks were next to each other. Really cool office. Like Zappos' office is very, very cool and lots of fun. And there's bars everywhere, and it's an amazing time. Trust me. And it's in Las Vegas, so obviously it has to be an amazing time. But you could just go up to someone. Like I could just go up to the graphics team and say, "Hey, y'all! Like I have feedback on this, or I need, this is not what I was looking for. Can you change this? Or we need to do this or that." And you could really have a dialogue with people. At home, you can't. Like you have to be, and this was before Slack had huddles. So this was like, when you had to just, write people or get on Zoom, and we all had Zoom fatigue. And, so it was a lot of communication, I think. It was a lot of Slacks. And I feel like now I'm a little burnt out by Slack. And so it was a lot of that. And how I changed, really for me, it helped. I created a lot of structure in my life so that I could meet the demand. I always made sure that I got my morning routine in, because I knew that I had a long day. And so getting up in the morning and dedicating time to self-care, doing some yoga, getting my body moving was very important, because I would be sitting down a lot, or buying a standing desk was very important for me. So I have a standing desk, and that changed the way I worked. And so really, I think the way that it changed is that it caused us to definitely show up more, show up differently. But also it caused us to really kind of look at our internal lifestyle. Caused me to look at my lifestyle, like around my house. Like if I'm in my house, I'm going to be here all day. I want it to be beautiful, and it needs to look nice. And so, and it needs to work for me and all that kind of stuff. So it changed a whole lot. And I think I don't think we're going back to a place where we were working, where we were before, where we have to be in the office, to get things done. Because now I'm at a point where you cannot pay me enough to go back into an office. Like as much as working from home, I love being home. I love being in my house. And so, I like to work from home, but also I love to get out and go to co-working spaces and things like that. So I do value getting out of my house and realize that I do need to get out and go to a co-working space and go lock myself in a place, because sometimes I can get distracted at home. But you really couldn't pay me enough to go back to how we were working before, like having to be in the office 40 hours a week. No, absolutely not.
No, absolutely. And that's actually a part of the rub that we're seeing now, right? In that a lot of companies are forcing people to come back, and there's some real pushback from that. So it'd be interesting to see how and where that goes. Now, you mentioned something when you were talking a little bit about, how the pandemic affected you, really about some of the things that were happening with your role at the time. And so a couple questions I have on that around, well, how did your role change during this time? And really, how did the pandemic start to affect your relationship with your job and how you were treated on the job during this time? Because it sounded like your work, some things happened on the job there.
Yeah, definitely. So the volume in which Zappos does paid social or social ads is very high. When you are thinking about how many ads you are maybe running yourself or in your own business, it's probably nowhere near the amount of campaigns that we were running. And I remember calculating somewhere between 75 to 100 different campaigns every month that had to be built. And that's just from scratch. That's not changes and optimizations. That's only, that's what had to go out. Wow. And so during that time, it was mainly just me that was building it. I had a boss who was amazing, who's awesome. And she was there, but then she left to go to take another opportunity. And so all of that stuff had to be kept up. And I didn't feel like I had someone really invested in my career as much as when she left. And so that kind of helps stalls your career when you don't have someone advocating for you. It's so important, especially in tech, to have someone who is advocating for you. It's important to advocate for yourself, which is something I've definitely learned from that experience. But it's also important to have people who are advocating for you. And so during that time, I didn't feel like I had someone advocating for me. I was bogged down by work. And so it was hard to really see myself hard to be able to kind of advocate for myself when I'm just trying to get to the end of the day, getting everything out and doing all that I need to get done. And because we have deadlines, we have, brands that have expectations, we have campaign launches that have to launch at certain times. It's a lot of moving pieces. And so in that, I decided to put in for a raise request that really kind of just took a very long time. And it was for a raise request for a very nominal amount of money compared to how much they make every day. And so there's that. There's red tape that you have to get through. And then in that time, then my boss came back. And then so having her back helped to really kind of move that process that had started before she came here along more, because then I had someone back advocating for me. And so that experience taught me that I need to be able to be my own advocate and be able to make my own money and be in charge of how much money I make, and not be reliant on having to jump through hoops or an organization that jumps through hoops in order for me to get to the next level, income wise. And during that time, it's also, you also we also have George Floyd's murder that's happening during that time. And it really is making you, as an employee, as a Black employee of these, organizations, really question your value within the organizations, because of responses and or things that are being talked about within the organization. It really makes you question, should I be here, or am I valued here? And so really, I think that was the thread during that whole time was, am I valued here? I see how much I'm putting out. I see how much money I'm making the organization. I see how many dollars are flowing. So it's not about dollars. It's about value. And for me, I said, well, now I'm going to go value myself. I'm going to create an organization where everyone feels valued and everyone feels like they are contributing and they are getting profit sharing and all those things that makes them really, really committed to the company, because we only take on clients who are really, really committed to their work and getting them to the next level. And therefore, we only take on high ticket clients because we do high value, high ticket work. And so I want to create an environment where particularly other Black women who are in marketing feel like they can come and be valued and having a voice and have a say in the direction of the organization, or have a say in the clients that they take on, and, be able to live their life the way that they want to and not feel like they're bogged down and tied to an organization that doesn't value them.
I hear that. And now looking back, what is one thing you would have done differently during the pandemic?
One thing I would have done differently is probably gone out and got other job offers. I don't think that, I'm someone who gets immensely loyal to a company to a fault. And when you're in an environment that is about relationships, is about who you know, and it's about advocating for yourself, but there's also a whole lot of stuff that's happening. You realize that, you have to advocate for yourself, or if you're not in a place where you can advocate for yourself, or if you're not, feeling like you can, go out and find another organization that will value you. And so not feeling like you have to stay loyal to a company because you've grown so much there. Or for me, for example, this was the highest paying job I've ever had. This was, I'm a Black girl from Baltimore, right? I working at Zappos was not something that, was on my roadmap. Working with UGG and Crocs and Nike and Adidas and Amazon was not somewhere on my roadmap. And so you feel a sense of ownness, like you owe the organization a little something. And that's not true. I feel you feel this immense loyalty, or I felt this immense loyalty toward an organization that was giving me so much opportunity, and I was getting a lot out of it and very valuable. And I did love working there, but there was also the other things that made me that I really wish I would have said, you know what, I'm going to go get some other jobs, get some other job offers, because this raise request is taking too long. I can go somewhere that literally would probably double my salary for my skills. But because I was so immensely loyal to the company, I really, kind of shot myself in the foot a little bit. So that's what I wish I would have done differently.
No, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who have been in similar boats, or maybe they're in that boat right now. And so to hear your story, hopefully that could, that may be like a, nice little trigger point for someone to maybe do something different. And so it's a perfect transition into, kind of the next question around, so you were at Zappos for, like you said, around 4 years. And then eventually you decided to resign. You said, enough is enough. April 2022, I'm out. And so ultimately, why did you leave your job during the pandemic?
Ultimately, I left my job because I looked at my life and I realized I don't want to be working all day. I don't want to be busy all day. I want to have time to sit and do nothing. I love to sit and do nothing. It's one of my favorite things to do. And so I wanted the space to be able to just live my life and not feeling like, I need to stack up these 3 days with this holiday weekend so that I can have a long vacation. I can go to Europe and go and do this, go on this week or 2 week long trip that I want to go on. And so I left because I said, I don't have time to live my life. And at the time, my business was doing very well. Had literally was getting client. And I got to a point where I was just like, I cannot do any more. I cannot take on another client in my business. I cannot commit more to Zappos. I cannot live my life and have this downtime if I continue to do all of this. And so it really was a refocusing. It was what is important in my life, which is me and my happiness and my freedom and my, the ability to do what I want to do. And so that's why I left. I left to be able to say, you know what? I am going to go and dive into my business. I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to bet on myself to be able to create the life that I want, where is a life of where I do have clients that I'm really, really committed to. And I really, really love working with them and really involved, being able to spread the message of, of marketing and help brands out there, especially other Black owned brands, to be able to learn the secrets behind these big brands that you get when you're spending a lot of money, right? I was meeting with Facebook every week. I was meeting with TikTok every week. We had dedicated reps to help us to be successful. These are the kinds of things that don't happen when you're not spending a whole lot of money. But because I have that experience, because I was able to do those things, I want to be able to use my podcast roadmap to 1 million, use my, channels and use my voice to be able to share this information with people so that they can build the lives that they want to live as well. So they don't get, end up feeling like they're just staying stuck because they cannot get the marketing to work, because marketing is something that's never ending in your business. You're always going to have to market your business. And so if you know how to do it, you know the strategies, you know the systems, and you get the support that you need, then you really can build the business of your dreams and you can become the next big brand. Like I help clients to be very big. That's what I want to. I want to help my clients to become large. Like I want to be able to help the next Fenty come to life, you know? And so I left to bet on myself to build the life that I want, to have the impact that I want, and to be able to really just make my dreams come true.
And that must have been such a freeing decision, right? And so talk to us a little bit about how did it impact you to actually make that call and leave?
Oh, it was scary. It was very scary. It was very scary. It was very much I had a plan. I had like goals of like, oh, I got to get this savings goal. I got to pay this credit card off. I got to do these things. And I had this plan, and I got to a point where it was just a day when I just was like, I have to put in my resignation. It's time. And so I wrote the letter. I think I sat on the letter for a week, and then I gave them 2 months notice. And so I even just, gave them a very, very, very long time before I left. But that decision really kind of came down to a feeling. And I'm a very much a vibey kind of person. I love the woo. I love chakras. I have chakras tattooed on my arm. Like I am very much like yogi energy kind of person. And so it was very much, I had a plan, but I just felt like it was time. And it was a freeing decision. Yes. It was a decision that so many of my colleagues were just like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Like, this is awesome. Like it got received very well. And I think it's because I really am an ambitious person. I'm really someone who really does make things happen. And I think that people see that about me. And so me saying that I was leaving and going to do my own thing was very well received because people are like, yeah, you are going to, you do that. Like, that's what you do. And so it was freeing. It was hard. It's been definitely a hard few months for sure. Like I'm not even going to say it was easy for anybody who's thinking about leaving. Like this has been like probably the toughest 6 months of my life, but there is a sense of freedom. There is a sense of I am in control of my destiny now. And while that's also scary, it's also freeing. It's also liberating.
And, that's a great transition into thinking about, some of the, before we talk about like some of the extra ventures, right? But what are some of the things that have happened since you've left?
Since I've left, I've literally burnt down my whole business and restarted it all over again. Because when I was leaving, I was just like, okay, I'm going to start a Facebook ad agency where I'm just going to build ads for people and that kind of thing. And that worked great for a while. And I got a lot of clients for that. And then I started to realize that like, I didn't want to do done for you services. I didn't want to be in the weeds of building ads every day. That's what I put in a request at Zappos for a promotion to get out of, to be building ads every day. And I actually did get out of that. And so me starting my business kind of put me back into it was a way for me to go back into my comfort zone. It was like, okay, that's something I'm good at. I know I get results with this. I can do this. But then I had to realize that like, I felt like I was called to do so much more. I still feel like I'm called to do so much more. I'm called to have such a bigger impact, and being in the day-to-day weeds of building Facebook ads and, what algorithm changes are happening. It's not where I'm best, where I'm in my zone of genius. Strategy is my zone of genius. Consulting and teaching and educating people is my zone of genius. And so I had to really kind of just release all of the clients that I had for done for you services when I let the contracts, end. And then I pivoted into being a fractional CMO where I am providing executive marketing leadership to brands. I'm consulting on their Facebook ads to help them to figure out like, how do they scale? And then I also teach brands how to use Facebook ads effectively, how to run ads in-house without having to use an agency. Because there's a lot of agencies out here that are kind of taking people's money and really aren't, delivering. And, there you can make the debate both ways, but either way, like I love helping in-house teams. I love when I come into an organization and the CEO has a team of hungry people who are like, yes, we really do want to succeed. We want to take the business to the next level. We believe in the mission, but we really just need the guidance and we need the leadership and we need the training to be able to, take our skills to the next level, we need the systems to be able to put in place that you've learned from working with these kinds of organizations. And so I come in and I create strategies, I create systems, and I build the support and build up the team so that they can actually be an effective in-house team and they can become the next Zappos and they can become the next Fenty. And I love doing that. And so now that I've pivoted it was a hard time to pivot, because it's like, okay, I'm not taking on agency clients, but I'm still getting agency leads. I'm trying to shift my branding and shift my messaging and all those things. And so it was definitely difficult. But I feel like now I'm in a place where I'm hitting my stride. And it feels good. So yeah, and I feel like I'm more in alignment, and that was my whole thing. I needed to be, whatever I do, I need to be in alignment with it. I really needed to believe in it, so I really need to want to do it. And Facebook ads, done for you services of building it was very much putting myself back in my comfort zone. But I had to break out of that and really understand that like being a leader and being the strategist on the team is very important, and it's where I should be.
And that seems very aligned with you, and from a yogi chakra standpoint, being in alignment. So that seems like look, it's all coming together for me as I'm learning more about you day by day. So I love to see that. And now I mentioned earlier how I learned about you, right? It was from this Lean In article and the Business Insider article. And so really, wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. What's been the reaction to your feature in the BI article? And what are some of your thoughts about Lean In's 2022 Women in the Workplace report?
Yeah, I've gotten great responses. I've had some great coffee chats with people, yourself included. I've gotten podcast interviews from it. I just got someone who, Melina, she's introduced me to a couple of her colleagues. So it's been great, and I am fortunate enough to have an amazing, amazing community of people who support me. Like, people believe in me. And so like when I post, I was in Business Insider, I got such a great response. People still comment on it or congratulating me for being in it. And so it's been a great response for sure. I would definitely say my thoughts on it is it proves how interconnected we are as a community, because so many of us in the article came from completely different backgrounds, completely different organizations, and we all had a very similar experience of feeling undervalued and feeling like, something isn't right here, right? Like, I'm showing up, I'm doing the work, I'm overcoming adversity, I'm, hitting my KPIs, or I'm doing things about it if I'm not. Like, you're seeing the money flowing in, you're seeing the impact that you're having for this organization, but it's never enough. And I think that we all carry that string of feeling like now it's enough. Like, you're not going to see me. That's okay. You don't need to see me. I see me. I'm going to bet on me, and I'm going to go step out on my own. And I'm going to go work with people who also see me and who value me. And I remember one time, for a client, I was helping her. I was working with her on her social channels, and she was asking me for something very small. Like, I just was like, "Oh yeah, here, sure. Here. This is what you do. Blah blah blah. Maybe 1, 2, 3 steps. This is what you do." She comes back to me and just like, "Oh my gosh, Stacy, this was so amazing. I love this. This is so life changing." And it's like, that took me 2 seconds to put together, and it made her feel so valued and so valuable, and it was helpful for her organization. And those are the kinds of clients that I love working with. Like, the clients I work with are trying to change the world. Like, they have created a product that they know, like, if I get this into enough hands, this product is literally going to change the world. And so when I work with those kinds of people, they also have a sense of gratitude and gratefulness for working with you, because they know that they're so passionate about what they're doing, but they need to just get out of their own way and get someone who can really come in with the strategy and the data to really be able to take them to where they want to be. And so I just love being able to work with people like that. And so I think that the other women in the article felt the same way, because I've had chats with both of them, and both of them are amazing. And they're just like, yeah, like, we've done some big shit, and now we all feel undervalued, but we're going to actually, step out and bet on ourselves. And so it makes you feel like you're a part of a sense of community, for sure, because it can be definitely a little lonely. You feel like sometimes you're the only one who's struggling. You feel like you're the only one who is, waiting for that invoice to come in so that you can pay this other invoice. But you realize that, like, you're not really alone, and there are other people that are going through it with you, and that there are other people that are also cheering you on.
No, that's great to hear. And yeah, I concur. Everyone in the article, just a bunch of great individuals who, we're definitely going to kind of get on the show. So now tell us a little bit more about Stacy Zeal & Co. and, of course, the roadmap to 1 million podcasts.
Yeah. So Stacy Zeal & Co. is my fractional CMO agency, where we provide part-time marketing strategy services and executive leadership to e-commerce brands that are scaling. So we work with brands that are really they built something, they know they have something, but they really don't, but they really need someone to come in and direct the team. Usually the CEO is overwhelmed and busy with so much that they have going on in the marketing, and they're the bottleneck in the marketing, they're the holdup, or they're working with agencies and they don't know what they're doing, or their marketing is not their thing. I've heard it all. And so those are the kinds of clients we work with, because we really want to see their brands become very large. And so when you have big dreams and big visions, that's when you come and work with us. And so that's what Stacy's Deal & Co. is. We also teach and have an education arm of our business where we are creating digital products, where we are creating different kind of resources for different brands who are at different levels, who really need the information that they just don't have, because you just don't know what you don't know. Like if you're working with influencers and you're seeing that influencer marketing is hot right now, you want to go out and buy and hire influencers. There's a way to do it, and there's a methodology behind doing it, and so that you can actually make money from it. And so we're creating products that will reveal these kind of secrets. And so Roadmap to 1 Million is my podcast. There's a new episode every Tuesday. And I created Roadmap to 1 Million because I wanted to share so much of the information that I learned working for big brands. And I've come across so many other women, so many women of color who have worked with big brands, who have all these strategies, who know these secrets, and want to actually help other brands who are scaling. And so the Roadmap to 1 Million really it talks about the marketing strategy, support, and the systems that you need to put into place to take your business to the next level. And right now I'm going to have some guests coming on that are some guest experts in different areas of places that I'm not necessarily an expert in. So I'm excited to highlight other women in the space. I'm excited to highlight other women of color in the space who are doing big things. I remember recently I saw an ad for a conference and it was like 30 speakers and it was just very lacking of diversity. And I just was like, this is ridiculous. It is 2022. I have a whole list of women who are women of color, who are doing big shit, who know what they're talking about, who are in these kind of spaces that you could be reaching out to, but you're just choosing not to. And so if you're not going to, I'm going to feature them and I'm going to give them a platform. And so that's what Roadmap to 1 Million is. It's a space for you to learn how to scale and grow your brands, but also to hear the stories and the strategies of successful 7-figure brands and other service providers who've worked with very large brands who can bring you the information that you just don't have yet.
No, yeah, well, I'm looking forward to that next evolution, right? Some of the guests you're bringing on, and look, full disclosure here, I'm a subscriber and a follower, and I am in over my head, guests, our listeners. I am in over my head, but I am learning a ton through Stacy with a lot of the information that she shares. And one of the things I noticed is that you offer like a variety of support options to potential clients, right? So break down kind of what those are and really how leaders could benefit from your services.
Yeah, definitely. So the main way that I work with my clients is as a fractional chief marketing officer, meaning I work one-on-one with their teams to help them to uncover the big problems in their business. So figuring out, like, a customer acquisition is a big problem. What you're posting on Instagram every day is not a big problem. It's something that someone who is on your team, who is a marketing assistant or a marketing coordinator, could really kind of figure out, like, what's the best things to post on Instagram, what's trending, all that kind of stuff, is stuff that someone who is more of a junior level can figure out. But a chief marketing officer or an executive on your team comes in to help you uncover, like, customer acquisition is a problem. What are the levers that we can pull to help us to get more, to increase our customers? What is, customer retention? What are kind of programs and things that we can put in place to increase customer retention? How do we market those programs, right? And so how do we get people to buy into it and roll into it? And so those are large problems that brands have, that especially e-commerce brands have, that they are trying to rely on junior marketers to uncover, but they just haven't built up their strategy arm yet. They're really kind of, I remember that was me. Like, I was a marketer, I've been in marketing for 11 years. When I started out figuring out how to keep, what to send out via email, what to post on Instagram, all that stuff was all what you had to figure out. But a chief marketing officer comes in with big high level strategies and solves big problems and provides executive leadership and training to your team so that they can eventually become your chief marketing officer. They can, because my goal with my clients is, like, I don't want to be your chief marketing officer forever. I want to, build up somebody in your organization so that they can eventually take over, because I want to only work 20 hours a month. I'm not trying to work, 40, 50 hours a week, when you become this multi-7-figure brand, right? Like, I want to get you there, but then I also want want to train someone to be able to take you to that next level. And so that's how I work with my clients. The main way is I work with them on retainer. The other way I work with clients is I work with clients on a Facebook ads strategy VIP day. So if you are running your own ads, or if you want to run your ads in-house, I sit down for a day with you and your team, and we map out the strategy, we map out the creative messaging, we map out the campaigns that you should be running, we map out your customer journey to figure out, like, where should you be sending people, what's the funnel, what are some levers that you can pull organically to help enhance your ad performance, because organic is also a big part of your ad, a part of your marketing. It's not one or the other, it's definitely both. And so we map that out in one day, and then they get access to me for 30 days to be able to look at creative and give them some feedback. But then they also get access to my technical trainings that I have in my client resource library, so that they can learn how to physically build the ads in-house themselves. So if you are definitely looking to run your Facebook ads in-house yourself, and you have the capacity, like maybe you have someone on your team that really wants to learn how to do Facebook ads, those are the people that I help. So really help them to map out the creative strategy and all that kind of stuff. And then the other way that I work with my clients is with strategy sessions. So if you are like, I really need some quick direction, I really just have like a messaging problem, and I really just want to sit down with you for 90 minutes and really just like talk through that, or I have a funnel problem and I just really want you to look at it. So I do work with brands in that capacity. And then I am actually rolling out my digital product library. So I'm creating some digital products. I'm creating an influencer marketing playbook that will be out within, by the end of November. It'll be out and ready for people to buy, so that you can really learn how to do influencer marketing correctly. Like, one of the biggest things I did at Zappos during the pandemic was go through influencer content and figure out what's going to be used in advertising, not stuff that's going to be cute and engaging that you want to put on your Instagram page, but what's actually going to sell product. And because of the shutdown, we had to rely on influencers a lot, because photography studios were shut down. We couldn't shoot anything. So we had to rely on influencers. And so I want to teach brands how to do it effectively, because they really are a great way to scale your business, especially if you pair them with Facebook ads. You can really, really start to take your business to the next level.
No, that's great to hear. And you talked a little bit about your advocacy in the cannabis space. And although I know this part of you is kind of on pause for a little bit, but you also host a show called Mary Zeal, where you discuss cannabis and self-care. So tell us a little bit about this space as well.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, cannabis definitely also helped me with stress. I was very much, doing, I would consume and then do yoga. I would consume and then meditate. And I would find how much deeper I could get into a meditation, or how much deeper I could get into yoga when I paired it with cannabis. And being the yogi that I am, and all the multi-passionate that I am, I was like, you know what, let's start a blog. As if you're not busy enough, let's start a blog. So I started Mary Zeal. It's still up. MaryZeal.com is still up. It's for women of color who are looking to really understand cannabis from a self-care lens, in a way that you can use it intentionally to enhance your self-care. And the podcast is called High on Self-Care. It's still up. It's one of those things I've been just literally, I feel like every week I get assigned to record a new podcast for High on Self-Care. So I think I might do something for the holidays. Maybe I'll do a little release or something. So I'm putting that on my plate. But yeah, High on Self-Care was my first endeavor into a podcast, and it made me fall in love with podcasting, because I'm long-winded, as you can tell, and I need to be able to give you a complete thought. Like, the 15 seconds on Instagram is cute, but I really need to be able to give you a complete thought. And so it created a love for podcasting that I now have. It grew to 10,000 downloads in a year, and we didn't know what we were doing, and so it was great. And so I might bring it back for sure, but now I'm trying to focus. I'm in a lane. The word of the year that I set in the beginning of this year for me was focus. And I have been feeling like I've been a little all over the place, but then I always bring it back to focus. So trying to just focus on space and time and focus on what I'm doing now.
No, very good. Very good. And so now, just reflecting on what this whole process has been like for you, what have you learned about yourself throughout this entire process?
I have learned about myself that the first word that comes to mind is resilient, but I don't like how we just throw resilient around, because I don't think that we should always have to be resilient. I think it's okay to sometimes just do nothing. But I think what I've proven to myself is that no matter what is going on, I will still always get up and show up. Even if it's hard to get up in the morning, I will still get up. Even if it's, I'm stressed out about personal things or other stuff that's going on, I still get up and I show up for my people, and my people show up for me. And so it really has taught me that when I get out of my own way and when I work on the things that are holding me back, it allows me to shine in a way that also encourages others to shine. And so I'm definitely someone who has had an issue with stepping fully into my light and really just feeling like, it's okay to just kind of blend in. But I've learned about myself that shining my light allows others and gives others permission to shine their light. And so if I can encourage people to shine by shining myself, I will continue to do that. And so, so that's what I've learned about myself. I'm definitely a boss, definitely a bad bitch, definitely the shit. And I've always believed that about myself. But even in this year, I've learned that when I get out of my own way, things just unfold so nicely.
No, I like that. And I love the confidence, right? and now when I a part of the show, I really love to get some advice for our listeners, right? And so when you think about for people who may have a similar situation to yours, but really are unsure what to do next, what would you suggest that they do?
I would suggest you stop and sit. And I think that a lot of times we want to have the answer right away. And I feel like for me, when I was thinking about leaving Zappos, when I was thinking about that transition out, once I made that decision, I was just like, I got to get out. I want to go now. Like now. I want this to happen right away. But I had to realize that everything is a journey. Everything is a process. And so if you're unsure, you're in a part of your journey still, right? Like, you don't have to move. You don't have to jump. You don't have to do anything until you're sure. And there is a sense of, will you be 100% sure? No, you won't ever feel like I'm 100% sure I'm going to jump and everything's going to work out, because let me tell you, you will jump and have things on a high and then it'll go right down, right? But you have to be able to trust yourself to figure it out. And that's something that I have learned also over this year, is that I trust myself to figure it out. I will figure something out and I will keep going until I figure it out. And so if you're unsure of what's next, just stop and just listen to yourself. Because a lot of times we just get so caught up in the busyness of life that we can't hear what's really, the voice is really telling us. And so whether stopping for you is meditation, whether it's sitting and breathing for 5 seconds, or just turning off music, taking a day to just close yourself in your space so that you can just sit and be. Like, those kinds of things are important, because the answer is going to come when the answer comes. It's not going to come. The more you stress yourself out about it, the harder it is to hear what the universe is really telling you. And so I tell people, like, you don't have to jump if you're feeling, like you're not necessarily, ready for it. Like, just give yourself time to be ready to commit to the journey, because that's really what it's about. It's not, you don't know that something is going to work out regardless of where you're at when you leave your job. You don't know if your business is going to take off or not. But really what you're betting on is yourself to figure it out, and you're committing to the journey, because it's definitely a journey of highs and lows. And you just have to be committed to that and committed to figuring it out before you actually take the leap.
Oh, I love that. And now pivoting to employers, what more do you think employers could be doing to better support employees, maybe even specifically women, in the workplace?
I definitely think that there should be more advocacy and recognition. I think that it is really hard to fight for yourself when you're bogged down in the day-to-day of work. Like, when you're trying to get, 10, 15 ads out, before a deadline, it's hard to really see above the surface. Like, you're just so in the weeds. You cannot see, oh my goodness, I need to really step up and advocate for myself. So I think companies can do a better job of really being proactive about promotions, being proactive about raises, being proactive about asking your employees what they need or what they're struggling with. One of the things I loved about Zappos is that we did have tons of mental health, resources available. And so I was meeting with the life coach, and I was doing, all that kind of stuff to figure out where am I at in this new transition of my life, especially, for me, it was going into a job making more money than I ever had before, with more responsibility than I had ever had in my life, that moved faster than any other job I had ever had in my life. And so I wanted to be able to sit with someone and talk about it. And so having those resources available, I think, is important. But it's also important to make sure that people who are not necessarily advocating for themselves feel seen, or feel that they are safe enough to actually advocate for themselves, and creating the space for them to do that.
I like that. And now, last kind of question of the day is really around, now you're in a good space, right? You got a lot, like you said, it's the year of focus. And so what type of impact are you hoping to have in this next chapter of your professional life?
Oh, great question. I am looking to inspire more women to bet on themselves. I want to inspire more women to create the life that they want, I guess more so, not betting on themselves. Because some people don't want to leave corporate. And I'm like, that's fine. Like being in corporate, like you get paid every 2 weeks or every week, whatever, that's great. It's not like that out here in these business streets, all the time, right? And so I want to encourage more women to create the life that they want to live. Like whether that's, getting out of a relationship or getting into a relationship, whether that's, starting a business or not, whether that's hiring someone to take the marketing off their plate so that they can go and travel the world and go to Fiji and do all the things that they want to do. Whatever it is that you want your life to look like, I want to inspire people to do that. And I think that I inspire people by doing that and talking about it and being vocal about it. So I think that's what this next chapter is about. It's about self-discovery and also inspiring others to have those kinds of realizations about themselves.
No, that's great. Well, look, Stacy, this was a really, really good discussion. I learned even more about you in this discussion than we had talked about prior. So, I love this. I have the greatest job, right? Because I get to talk with so many great people. So look, I thank you again for taking some time to speak with me today. Your story, your show, everything. I'm a fan of it. So obviously I'd like for us to stay connected, but would love for you to share where our listeners can support you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. This has been a fantastic conversation. I really, really appreciate the questions and being able to go deep into my story. It's not something I really go deep into a lot, so I appreciate it. So yeah, y'all can connect with me. You can go to roadmap-to-1million.com. That has all my links there. My site is stacyzeal.co, STACYZEAL.co. And I'm also on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram at stacyzeal.co, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the places. I just got a professional Facebook account now, so I'm excited about that. So that's where you can connect me. I'm all over the web, and follow my podcast, Roadmap to 1 Million. It's available on any place that you listen to your podcast. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places.
No, great. Well, thank you for that info. And look, that'll do it for today's episode. Again, I want to thank Stacy Reed for joining me today. I'll make sure I put all of her information in our show notes. So hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Thank you again, Stacy.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to Why I Left. Be sure to join us next time for more stories from the Great Resignation. Visit us at www.whyileft.co. That's whyileft.co. And subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.